Hi y'all, welcome to my shop. Today we're going to turn a Kuksa. It's a traditional Scandinavian drinking cup, usually made out of a birch burl, but today we're going to make ours out of a piece of green cherry burl. Traditionally the handle is on the same profile as the lip of the cup, makes it easy to recognize. Some of them have a single hole like this one, some of them have a double hole, some of them have just a flat top. I got the idea for this traditional drinking cup from a back cover, a little brief, I guess you could say an article that Mike Mahoney did for American Woodturner back in February 2019. One of the advantages of belonging to the American Association of Woodturners is you get access to digitally to all of the issues all the way from back to day one, over 35 years of issues. Lots of project ideas. So if you're not a member, think about it. First we're going to draw our template on a piece of cardboard that we can trace out. We're going to make the cup 3.5 inches, and then we're going to make the handle 2.5 inches. So we're just going to draw a line on each. We're going to make the handle right here, 1 inch wide. Let me just kind of sketch that out. Marker's getting a little bit dry. So right here, we're going to make it 1 inch. This is going to be 3.5 inches in diameter. Go ahead and just draw that in. And then we're making this part right here 2 1/2 inches. Okay, I take the template, I mark the center where we're going to drill a woodworm screw, and then I just trace the outline with a magic marker. And then we're going to take this over the bandsaw and cut it out. Before I cut away this piece of wood, I want to leave that supporting to support this drill cut. I'm going to use a spade bit because it's fast. So now I drill a hole for the woodworm screw. Woodworm screw is a great way of fastening a lot of projects on the lathe using your scroll chuck. If you're not familiar with it, click on the link above. I've got a video on it. Or if you've had bad luck with it before and you want to find out why. I always like to put a bit of wax, make it easier to thread it on and off. Put a little pressure on here. You could use dry wood. I prefer turning green wood because this is a fairly green burl. It's what I have. Okay. So I've marked a tenon on the bottom of my my blank, and I guess I better turn the lathe power on. Still getting used to that main shutoff switch. We'll give that just a second. And I'm going to come in here using the 1/2 inch spindle gouge to kind of get a little room away from that tenon, and then I'll clean it up with a detail gouge. I'm up around 1200. Nothing magic about that number. out here. And now I'm going to go with a 3/8 inch detail gouge to kind of really square this up. And pull back. Want a nice flat shoulder here. Now, because it is uneven, I think I'm going to flatten off the bottom a little bit. I'm going to use a 3/8 inch full scraping cut. Now we got a nice good tenon. Okay. Got a nice good hold on it. I think I'm going to go ahead and shape this up just a little bit. Certain amount of air turning here. Just going to do a slide. Off and just clean up that bottom a little bit. So I do that by I bump the edge while speaking, slowly come off, and then I just come in just a little bit. Now let's put it on the chuck. Set that aside. Now it's time to hollow this out. 1/2 inch bowl gouge to take that passing cut. That's flat enough. 5/16 inch hole. And let's see how deep. The tenon is going to be part of the bottom of this. So I'm not going to remove the tenon. I'm just going to reshape the cup. So I will actually use that. Whoa, that wasn't pretty. Tapped it here and with the propeller coming around. Gotta be careful. I'm going to go a bowl gouge. This is not spindle orientation on the grain. The grain of this is actually like a bowl. So I'm going to come in here from the side and I have to put my tailstock back out of the way here. Okay. Now we can do it. I think I want the walls to be maybe 3/8 of an inch thick. Flute is maybe 1 to 2 o'clock. started playing with a 40-40 grind, and that's too steep a grind to get down in the bottom, so I'm going to have to switch to something else to maintain bevel contact. So let's go to a bottom feeder bowl gouge. That's the one that's shaped more like a spindle roughing gouge almost, fairly 55 or so angle grind. Check, make sure. Okay, I'm right at the bottom. So now I'm going to switch to a depth gauge just to make sure. And that's as deep as I want to get. Now I think I want to probably maybe do a little bit of shaping with a scraper. So I'm going to use this negative rake scraper and just kind of clean up the walls and a little bit transition down to the bottom. Light pressure. And I'm happy with that smoothness of the walls. That won't need much sanding. Nice transition to the bottom. I could probably get a little more out here in the corners, get a little more room for liquid. I think I'll do that. Now, I think I'll go ahead and sand the middle off the camera. Now, I forgot to put anything on my lathe bed before I started with this cherry. I'm getting a little bit of, I don't know if it's rust or resin. I'm going to put a little WD-40 on it now. Brillo pad from the dollar store. Just kind of clean this up a little bit. Now I've sanded the inside with a combination of hand sanding and power sanding, and now I'm going to use my shop-made abrasive paste, mineral oil, beeswax, and diatomaceous earth or triple E, and I'm going to rub that in. I sanded it up to 320. Got that rim. Now be real careful when you stick your fingers in an opening like this. Brace your hand a little bit. Now I'm ready to take it off and start some shaping around the edges with a bandsaw, and then a little sanding, power sanding around the grip. Now I got a little bit of a tenon that I want to smooth, leave the bottom part but smooth that wall into it. There's several ways I could hold this, chuck this, and the one that I'm using my power grip jaws with one jaw removed, and I think that will hold it just fine. Alternatives are to use a jam chuck, but I didn't make the walls that shallow, didn't want to. The other way is you can manipulate these cold jaws and move the buttons appropriately to hold it, but this looked like it would take more time to set up, and this would get the job done just fine. So you always want to get a habit of spinning that project, make sure nothing's going to hit, get the tool rest, cut where you can cut on center. It's just a bit high. Lower just a tiny little bit. Notice where this is, keep your hand out of the way. Get the speed up. I don't need to go much past 1,000. So I'm just going to come in with the flute facing at maybe 1 o'clock and just start knocking off that edge. And I think I want to just hollow out the bottom just a little bit, just twist it just a little bit. So when this dries, and maybe it moves a little bit, I've still got, it'll still rest maybe flat on the camp table. And I certainly can double check that with the ruler. And by the time I sand that middle out, I think that would be fine. So now I want to come in. This is going to be tricky with this, because I can't come in very far, but I can get in there just to get this corner to blend. Well, there goes that idea of that blending in. match, I guess. Need to snug it down just a little bit more. I didn't want to get teeth marks. Let's see what that bottom looks like. A little bit of a line I'm not concerned about. And now we're going to take this out and do a little more shaping on the bandsaw. The safest way to trim these edges is to tilt your bandsaw table. So I do some final shaping with my Dremel knockoff tool with a high-speed steel grinding burr and some sanding discs, and then I use my rigid belt sander, and then I use the ultimate sanding kit from Woodturner's Wonders to kind of shape the outside, and then I finally finish it with Mahoney's walnut oil. Now here's the result. I welcome all your comments. Remember, y'all stay safe. Come on back here.